Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to yet another edition of Women for Progress, Legally Speaking. We are here. Largely, it's campaign season, and I am. When I tell you, first of all, I'm your host, Darla Palmer, and I have someone here. I'm so excited who's here with me this evening because we'll be talking to him, but I feel like I've been talking to him for 20, 30 years at least. And hopefully I look younger than how long I've been knowing him. And so I have this evening, we want to welcome Hinds County Court Judge Peter Teeuwissen. And we're so glad to have you, Judge. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Darla. It is so good to be here with you. I did meet you right when you finished law school because you're a fellow Midwestern law school grad, and so yeah, you're
That's
still
right.
young.
That's right. So wow. So we talking 30 years because I finished 94. So I know I've been knowing you a long time. And I want to put in here too, you feel like family to me. Because you look like a lot of folks in my family. So I know something that a lot of people they may have trouble. They just call you Judge T. But why don't you tell us about your last name, Teeuwissen? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, thank you, Darla. And yes, I do tell people to call me Judge T. My last name is Dutch. I had on my father's side. My great grandfather came over from Holland in 1909. Apparently, he was a cigar maker and came to
Okay.
America and ended up being a minister after he came to America. Uh, Skip down two generations, and my father still had that name when he met my mother and married her. My mother was an orphan um, and later adopted and had some mixed race ancestry. So I got a little bit of sound one way, look one way, and then I got a name that floated over from their paternal side. So that's who I am.
That's right. That's right. Well, I've been knowing you, so hey, I know all about how you fight for the rights of those of us of any color. To be frank with you, and I appreciate your history. Um,
Well,
as
Darla,
as
I appreciate that. And you are family because I've entrusted you to take care of two of my daughters on legal
yeah,
matters. And I can't think of
yes.
any better endorsement for an attorney when you say, I'm going to send my own child over to you. So I feel your family too.
That's right. Thank you so much. Well, let's get started this evening. We got let's talk a little bit about this position, Hinds County Court Judge. Wow. And you know what? I always forget to do this. As we get started, I want to first give what we call our Women for Progress disclaimer. And that disclaimer being that we're not actually giving any legal advice, but we're merely giving and having legal discussions. And so, if you are indeed looking for legal advice, we suggest that you obtain a private attorney for any type of direct advice. And so now we can really get started. I should have said that in the beginning. So, Judge, why don't you tell me about? I know that we had a vacancy down at the county court. Unfortunately, we had Judge Stokes to pass, and you were appointed right after that. That was back in December of last year.
Yes, Darla. Judge Stokes passed in May of last year. Wonderful woman. We all know Judge Stokes. I've been blessed
Absolutely.
over the years. I actually started my career working alongside her for James Graves at the Department of Human Services. And then later, my family's church home is New Hope, where her father was a longtime deacon. So she
Yes.
passed, unfortunately, in May. I got appointed in December. And
Yes.
we've been running the busiest docket in the state of Mississippi since then.
I can imagine. I've already had something before you. I can't believe it. And so, as far as how the county court works, I'm familiar a little bit, but tell us a bit more just about county court falls in between, right? Circuit,
Yes.
and we have our justice court beneath. We got county in the middle. Tell tell us about just sort of the appointments and excuse me, not the appointments, but just who our judges are at the county court.
Well, I think that's important. County court is a little bit different. We usually think of our chancery judges, such as Judge Crystal Wise Martin or Judge Hodges, Judge Owens or Judge Wise, for those who have been around a while, like me. We think of them, and then we also think of our circuit judges, such as Judge Kidd, Judge Peterson, Judge Green, who retired a couple of years ago. But we also have county court, and county court does fit in between the justice court and circuit court, and it has overlapping jurisdiction with the other two courts. But what makes it unique, Darla, is that in county court there are 3 separate dockets, and each judge only handles one docket.
Yes, my goodness. So I'm familiar with, I think, all of you guys, and so when we say that docket, we know we have Judge Hicks. She's at the youth court. Is that correct?
That's correct, Darla. Judge Hicks is our youth court judge, and Senior Judge Johnny McDaniels is the criminal docket judge. And by statute, the most senior judge in county court can decide how to assign the 3 dockets. So Judge McDaniels, being a former city prosecutor back when I was city attorney, he has assigned himself the criminal docket. He has assigned Judge Hicks the youth court docket, which is what I understand her advocacy was in before she took the bench. And then I'm taking the civil docket that was previously done by Judge Stokes. And before Judge Stokes, there was a civil docket was done by Judge Houston Patton.
Yes. Okay. So basically, it when you come in, or the person who's running for your spot, because there's an election coming up soon, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But the person coming in, which feels like it's going to be you, but that person will be handling the civil docket. Is that correct? Uh-oh, can you hear me, Judge?
That's correct, Darla. There's been some talk among the candidates of doing either youth court or criminal, but by statute, that sole authority rests in Senior Judge McDaniels' hand, and he has indicated that he does not intend to disrupt the system. He thinks it functions well now. Of course, he's doing the same thing that Judge Stokes did when she was senior judge. She had 3 separate dockets, and the same thing that Judge Houston Patton did when he was senior judge. He had 3 dockets. So it seems that judges who we all respect and have been in this court have managed the court with the 3 separate dockets. And Judge McDaniels has indicated he intends to do the same regardless of whom is elected in November.
Yes. So, and talking about that, sort of the civil matter, that particular docket that you are now handling, and that all of the judges prior to you in this particular position, let's talk about what the civil docket includes. I know you told me a little bit about, which honestly I had no clue, as much as about eminent domain. What is that exactly?
Well, it's interesting you should bring that up, Darla. Of all the judges in Hinds County, 4 chancery judges, 4 circuit judges, 3 county court judges, so 11 total. This position that's on the ballot in November is the only eminent domain judge, period. Out of those 11, whomever the public elects in November is the eminent domain judge for Hinds County. Eminent domain is where the government comes and takes your property for a government project. I can give you a couple of examples that most people are familiar with. The taking of property up in Madison County for the Nissan project. And another one would be the taking of property over by Jackson State for the parkway over to Jackson State, what is now named the Dr. Robert Smith Parkway, going over to Jackson State.
Yeah.
So when the government needs land for economic development, it can take land under certain circumstances, but it also has to fairly compensate the individuals from whom the land is taken. And this judge is the only judge in Hinds County who's going to make those very crucial decisions for our friends and family in Hinds County.
So you mentioned also like about bridges and different types areas like that. Or before we say that, I know like the land on the Parkway, the Smith Parkway there near Jackson State, there were some citizens who were displaced because of that eminent domain action, right?
That's correct. Usually eminent domain means a citizen is going to be displaced. And while, again, I think anyone who's driven the Parkway is glad it's over there, and it has certainly opened up the area around Jackson State. When you displace people, it's important that those folks are fully compensated for being disrupted. Oftentimes, people have lived in their homes for decades or generations, and the cost of moving is not cheap. And so people need that full compensation. The better projects that are less of a headache, as you mentioned, Darla, and I've had a bridge project this year. I already had an eminent domain trial as your Hinds County Court judge down in Utica. They put a new bridge in to replace one that was outdated and not safe. And they needed about 50 feet of right-of-way on each side of the road, about 150 feet long and about 50 more feet going back into the owner's property. So we had that trial in July and got the compensation settled in that case.
Right. So the as far as any bridge action, similar to that, all of that would come through the civil docket here in Hinds at the Hinds County Court.
Yes, ma'am. Any road project, bridge project, this one lake project that folks keep talking about, any project like that where the government needs or intends to take property is going to come through Hinds County Civil Court.
Yes. So you, as well as the eminent domain, I would imagine you have evictions and do you see many of that coming through your court?
I see a lot of evictions. Generally the court docket consists of what I call housing matters. Evictions are part of housing matters, debt collection matters, and then injury, accident cases where people have been scammed out of money, things like that. This court deals only with money issues or money matters. So however money matters arise, if it's under $200,000, which is most of the money disputes in Hinds County, they end up in this court. And
that's right.
This court ends up with about 5,500 new cases each year. And each of those 5,000 or so matters involve someone like you or me, Darla, our family, our friends, our neighbors who have some monetary dispute, whatever that may be, because most of our disputes are under $200,000.
So also, for example, like hospitals often sue for overdue medical bills. If it's under the $200,000, then they are going to head to county court to file an action, correct?
They sure are. And I appreciate you mentioning that. I take a real skeptical view towards medical debt collection. Obviously, I've taken an oath to uphold the law, so I'm not going to not uphold the law. Don't come to court and ask me to break the law. But medical debt, most often that is not by choice. You've had something unfortunate happen that's required you to get this hospitalization or this medical care. So I require an itemization of debt. It surprised me that a hospital show up and say, Darla owes me $25,000 with no itemization. Right. I mean, I've seen this. This is an actual case. And I'm like, no, I want to see itemization. And if you give a discount to providers, I need you to give the discount to this plaintiff. So what I've done is work to reduce medical debt. Same thing on other types of debt. I've taken my pen and reduced the attorney's fees on the collection efforts. And I'm not trying to burden folks who are already burdened financially with just piling on more debt. That doesn't make any sense. Going back to evictions, Darla, the first thing I did in December when I took the bench was I said, I'm not evicting anybody in December. I'm just not doing that.
Yes.
It wasn't going to necessarily be better in January, but we shouldn't do it during the holidays. Then
Yes.
in January, we started taking a really proactive approach to these evictions. For example, if someone is on public assistance, if they get evicted, they lose public assistance. So if you're on public assistance, I won't let you get evicted. I may have to help you get out of that property because the property owner has rights that they want to enforce as well. So I've got to balance that. But I won't let it be an eviction because I don't want to jeopardize your public assistance. And so that's
My,
what I've done in all these matters is look out for the individual person. I'm going to respect the rights of the corporation. I understand that. They usually have a lawyer. The individual is usually by themselves. It's my job as judge to make sure that that comes out to a just and balanced result. And I'm looking to relieve.
Judge, I'm
Yes,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
it's okay.
I did not know that an eviction would affect their ability to get government assistance.
It directly affects your ability. If you're on Section 8 and you have a voucher and you get evicted, you lose the voucher. You got to start the process over. It might take you 2 years to get qualified again. Well, what are you
My
supposed to
goodness,
do? What are you supposed to do for housing in the meantime?
correct.
Certain other types of public assistance may be affected depending on the reason you got evicted. So it's really important, and this is where I think my 34 years of experience helps. I understand how the pieces of the puzzle fit together. And
Yes,
so I don't want to do something that affects someone and has unintended consequences of further affecting a family or children or the elderly.
that's right. And so, if there's oftentimes too, if you're the jurisdiction at the justice court is going to be, is it 2,500 or 2,000, where they
Well,
can appeal from a justice court to come to county court.
Darla, you're correct. They've increased justice court jurisdiction to 3,500, and so
3,500.
but there are a lot of cases that start in justice court that end up before me. It doesn't matter
Yes.
which of the 5 justice court judges you see. If you take a civil appeal, you're going to get to one judge, and that's the county civil judge. And so there are
Yes.
folks
Yes.
who, for whatever reason, in justice court, perhaps justice court told them they had 72 hours to get out.
Yes.
And
That's right.
that's what Mississippi law says. So a justice court judge enforces the law 72 hours. Well, Darla, I don't know about you, but I couldn't move anywhere in 72 hours. I couldn't clean out my office in 72 hours, let alone move out of a residence.
I know. Exactly. Exactly.
So I receive, or this position receives appeals from people who are seeking more time or a more humane resolution. And I will allow appeals without having to post a bond, Darla. I just allow people to appeal if necessary, so we can get another review. No offense to any justice court judge, because they're very valuable to the system. But let another judge have a review and see if we can't craft a solution that is humane for everyone involved.
That's right. Wow. Well, I almost called you Jamaican because I know that you have had many jobs. So why don't we talk?
Yes, ma'am.
And I know that it falls, it's your experience, that I know I value so much that you bring to this position. But why don't you tell us quickly a little bit about your background and then what jobs you've had, because you've had a lot.
Well, I guess I've had a lot. You practice 34 years. You get some positions, but I really want to start off with my work experience from college. I started working at age 17 when I was at Teeuwissen, my second semester in college. Worked fast food jobs, sold shoes, did construction, all those while in college. In law school, I served process, and I worked at UPS and worked in a motel. So I'm one of these folks who had to pay my bills and hustle and work every job. And when I sit on the bench, I not only include all my legal experience, but I never forget all those jobs I worked for $3.35 an hour, $3.50 an hour, $3.75 an hour. And I never forget that working in convenience stores or fast food, that a lot of people have to make a living that way. And I think it brings some compassion to the bench that I naturally extend. As a lawyer, Darla, I started out, I know you were a law clerk for Judge Graves, and before
I was.
he was a judge, he was at the Department of Human Services, and I worked for him for about a year, and then went over to Isaac Byrd and spent the first 4+ years of my career really learning how to try cases with Isaac Byrd. Look, had a blast as a young lawyer. Isaac was something else in the courtroom. And when you're young and trying to get your bearings, there's nothing better than being able to go to court every 2-3 months with somebody dynamic. From there, I started practicing with Anthony Simon. And most folks know I practice off and on with Anthony for 25 years, actually more than 25 now. And of course, I've done public service, been the city attorney, the city's litigation counsel, Hinds County Board of Supervisors attorney. So I've had a few positions and had a really varied legal practice where I've represented people suing government, represented people in medical malpractice cases, been, defended and represented a lot of everyday folks, a lot of elected officials, and always have tried to, I hope I've always tried to be on the side of right.
Yes. That's been my experience. I
appreciate it. I've even tried, Darla, not that I'm you by any stretch of the imagination, but I've tried about 10 felony criminal trials in my career too. And I don't know how folks like you do it. I've had a lot of juries I've waited on to bring back a result, but waiting on a criminal jury to bring back a result, that is a weight unto itself. So thank you for all you do.
Yeah, it's sweat provoking.
It is. Yeah.
That's right. So we got an important race coming up, huh?
Yes, we do. November 5th.
And yes, tell me. So that so your election is in November. Is that correct?
Yes, Darla. I urge everybody to get out and vote. Hopefully you're already registered to vote. If not, register to vote and then vote. And you start at the top of the ballot with president. And that's that other person whose name they don't want to pronounce right. She'll be at the top of the ballot. Let me just remind folks, start up there at the top of the ballot. Judges are nonpartisan, but start at the top of the ballot. There's a woman on the ballot.
Yes.
And then
I'm familiar. Yes.
As you vote down through the ballot, of course, there is your congressman, Congress representative, and then we'll have a Supreme Court race, some other races. And the last race for those in Subdistrict 2 will be your Hinds County Court judicial race. And so I'm asking everybody, vote to the end of the ballot, flip it over if you have to, but make sure you get to the end.
Yes. And so that is going to be Hinds County Court Judge.
Right.
And probably on the back of the ballot. And it will have your name, which is, at least they can remember, Judge PT.
Right. Well, I've got the T. We forget all the rest. I'm the T in this race, so I'm going to be the last name, and I'm likely going to be the last name on the ballot. So that's why I'm telling everybody, they told us as kids in school, make sure you read to the end of the book. Don't stop till you get to the end. Read the whole question before you check it on the exam. Vote to the end, everybody.
That's right. And let's Subdistrict 2.
Yes.
Who would be your voters? Yeah, who would be your voters?
My voters are Central, West, and some of South Jackson. And it's easiest to think of it this way. If you have children who attended Lanier, Jim Hill, Provine, or Wingfield, those are the areas within this subdistrict. That's the easiest way to talk about it, is the 4 high schools. It runs from Terry Road and McDowell over to McDowell and Robinson. You come up Robinson, you capture the Queens, come up through Flag Chapel to north side. No, Presidential Hills is not in the district. Everyone asks. No, you get to north side, you come back east on the north side and you pick up Northwest Hills. You pick up Bel Air, then you follow the railroad tracks over to Bailey Avenue Extension, and you come back through Georgetown, and then of course all of West Jackson around Jackson State, the doggone Addition, and those areas as well.
Okay. And so the 4 high schools, Lanier, Jim
Jimmy,
Hill, tell me
Provine,
the other 2, Provine
and Wingfield.
and Wingfield. Gotcha. So that's certainly easy to remember. And then it seems like it's still a pretty large sub district. There are 3 sub districts.
Correct. Judge McDaniels has the largest by area because he has the rural part of the county and the rest of South Jackson. Judge Hicks has Northeast Jackson and Northern Hinds County out like Pocahontas and Presidential Hills. But this is a lot of people in a small geographic area, but there are 33 precincts in this sub-district, Darla.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is a pretty large sub-district, 33. My goodness. So I know you've been out there pounding the pavement, huh?
I have, and I will say this, people talk about campaigning. I enjoy the meeting the people part, believe it or not. I've been knocking on doors. One gives you a good idea of what neighborhoods people are still committed to saving. Also gives you an idea where there are problems that need tackling. But just interacting with people and being out there, I have truly enjoyed that time. There are a lot of good people in Jackson. I know that everyone picks on us. You know, I know we're the joke for the state folks and the neighboring counties and all that. But it's a lot of good people in Jackson, and it's really been an honor to go ask people for their vote, believe it or not.
Yes, I'm glad you see that. That's true. I agree with that, and I guess I personally feel like people should know who you are. They should get to know you and know what your experience and just what you can bring to the position. And so as I sort of wrap us up for this evening, why don't you tell me, what do you feel makes you stand out as the best candidate for county court judge?
Well, Darla, I think all 3 of us in this race have said our experience. But when folks look at my experience, I was successful as your city attorney. I was successful as your Hinds County board attorney. I've been successful in private practice. I've been successful representing plaintiffs, defendants. I've been successful representing folks who've had their rights stripped away. I did a pro bono effort with the ACLU. You may remember this, Darla, where we eliminated pay or stay in Biloxi. And that was the first case in Mississippi where we were able to force a municipality to stop holding people because they couldn't pay a fine. And so everything this court does, from eminent domain to housing matters, I've done representing somebody somewhere. And when you combine that with the compassion I have, not just passion, but compassion to really help people, to help my neighbors, to make a difference. And I get dishonest. My father spent his entire career at HBCUs. First, he taught at Teeuwissen, then he was academic VP at another HBCU. My mother was active in school integration in Madison County. I tease her that when she was still with me, that her lawyer was Fred Banks. They created that school system that everybody loves up there in Madison County. That wasn't what they were trying to do, but they laid the foundations for it with their efforts 50 years ago. So I have this true compassion. What I think makes me the best candidate is I bring all the experience, but I bring this compassion about how do we help our neighbors? How do we get justice that really makes a difference in somebody's life? Because Darla, every client you represent, every individual matter before the court, that's the most important thing to that person or that family.
Yes, that's right. And I think you and I joked a little bit about our bar number and how small it is.
Right.
So the smaller the number, the longer you've been doing it. So I think you told me your number is smaller than my number.
It's a small one. I got 4 digits. I think they're using 6 for everybody now.
Right. Yes. So experience matters. It does, but also the compassion for the job matters, because you want to make sure that you are reflecting our community and that we care
Right.
about our community. So I can vouch for you on that. I appreciate your service, so much of it. And I just, I love you for that. And so I think, what would you say would be one of your greatest achievements since practicing law? I got my little cheat sheet over here. That's one of my last questions I got on here.
Well,
So
I appreciate.
tell me one of the greatest achievements you feel since you've been practicing the law, since you had that 4-digit number.
Well, I'm going to say something non-traditional because it's what really is important to my heart. I've been blessed. I've had second largest medical malpractice verdict in Mississippi, where I was co-counsel with Reuben Anderson. Largest premises verdict where I was co-counsel with Dennis Sweet. But my greatest achievement has been in bar admissions. 22 years ago, James Graves, as a new Supreme Court justice, appointed me to the 9-member board that helps people become lawyers. And at that time, the difference in performance between minorities and women and white men was, for the statistic geeks, more than one standard deviation. For us normal folks, it means there was a huge gap where white men got through at a higher percentage or a disproportionate percentage. Over the years, we have eradicated that during my time in service. I chaired that board. I was only the 3rd chair in the history. I also stepped aside so we could have our first female chair. The previous 2 chairs were fired by the Supreme Court. I voluntarily stepped aside and still serve so we could have a female chair after me. Okay. And we have long since eliminated those disparity gaps, and we've made more women and more minority lawyers in the last 10 or 15 years than in any period ever. And yes, more people are going to law school, but we've converted the coming out of law school into bar licenses. And that's the important thing. It used to be, our folk may have came out of law school, but they couldn't get a license. Now we're doing better than ever in making sure our people from our communities, from our HBCUs who have walked there, just like you and I have a better shot than ever to actually get a license. And long term, that's what makes the difference in our community. More lawyers that look like you, more lawyers that go to Tulu and Jackson State, more people who have come from disadvantaged backgrounds. More people like that in the system make the system better. That's been my greatest achievement by far. And that's been unpaid service, 22 years, unpaid service, answering directly to the Supreme Court. But it has been the greatest thing ever. And I wouldn't trade any of that 22 years of, I probably put 500 hours a year into this, no pay. And I wouldn't trade it because we've made a difference.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. So you, along with the others on the board of bar admissions, has something to do with these big bar numbers then.
We do. And we just had an 80% pass rate, which was wonderful. So we've got a bunch of new lawyers coming through. And it's good to see. Now, look, if there's one of us who doesn't get through, it hurts me. And we still got to do better. But we have made a big difference. When you see young women or minority lawyers, anybody who's been admitted in the last 22 years, please know that I had something behind the scenes with doing to making sure these folks get admitted. And I don't need credit, but I take a lot of pride in that. When I get to see my maker and he looks at my list of sins and he's going to have something to look at, then he looks at my works. He's going to be able to look at these works that I've done, opening these doors, I think, and say, good job.
Yes. Well, good job. Good job. Well, if people do want to vote for you, when and where can they vote for you?
November 5th, vote to the end of the ballot. And the easiest way to find out whether your precinct is in Subdistrict 2 is go to keepjudgetee.com. That's my campaign website, and on there we have a list of the precincts. So if you wonder whether your precinct is in there, go and check that out. If you're in Byram or Clinton, no, you're not in there. Northeast Jackson, no, you're not in there. But if you think you're in a part of South, Central, or West Jackson that votes, go to keepjudget.com, click on one of the tabs, and it will have your precincts. You can also follow me on Facebook at Peter Teeuwissen. You can see my interactions with the community. You can hear me speaking on other platforms or giving interviews, and you can listen to, you've heard my experience, but the consistency of my passion and compassion for delivering justice to our fellow citizens.
Awesome. Wow. And listen, we didn't have to practice for this. We did, you did good.
No, we didn't. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say to anybody watching out there, I am a member of Omega Psi Phi. I pledged at Teeuwissen College. We have our 76th chapter reunion coming up the second weekend in October. And I know folk may look at me and say, no, I pledged at Teeuwissen, and I have been a member of Omega Psi Phi now for 39 years. Woo-woo.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right, Sarah. You know I know that.
So listen, I have really enjoyed talking to you this evening. What a great, great discussion today. And I encourage everybody, like you say, is somebody at the top of the ballot where their name is often mispronounced as well. So all the way to the bottom where another name that's often mispronounced, but I got it, and it's Peter Teeuwissen, and it's Keep, Keep, Judge, Judget, correct?
Yes, that is it. Yes. .com.
.com. KeepJudgeT.com. Yes.
And if for folks who wonder about my family, go on my Facebook page. Look at the range of color in my family, and I think you'll understand more who I am. I married a Moment. Anybody who knows the Moment family know they all look like me too. And I'm kin to the Banks family as well. That's why there's a big old sign over there in front of Earl Stewart Banks' house. So I would encourage people, go on the website or go on Facebook and learn a little bit more about me and my family.
That's right. And all of us have some color. We joked about that too, that you not saying that you the age of my daddy, but you look like my daddy too. So listen, we had a great time tonight. And I want to thank you for joining us here at Legally Speaking. I encourage everybody to get out and vote November 5th. That's a Tuesday. So whether it rains or not, we got a big agenda at the top of the campaign. The top of the ballot. There's a big responsibility that we got to handle, but we don't want to forget we save the best for last as well. So thank you, Judge T, for coming out this evening.
Thank you, Darla. Yes, thank you, Women for Progress, for this opportunity. And thank you all to the listeners and the viewers. Everybody who listens and views this, obviously I want you to vote for me. But the most important thing is you're taking time to educate yourself. So thank you, Women for Progress, for giving us an opportunity to share more about ourselves. And Darla, thank you. Longtime friend asking me questions. Wow, it's just such a blessing. Thank you.
It is. It's a blessing to me too. So with that, we'll say have a good evening.
Have a good evening, Darla. Have a good evening, everyone.
Yes, sir.